Hi everyone, thanks for joining us for another Creative Aging program. I'm Sharon, I'm the Makerspace librarian here at the Rawlings Library, and I'm here in the Makerspace bringing you another program today. I know that the program title says that this is going to be Shannon from Sizzling Stampers, but for those of you who follow the programs and watch regularly, you'll know I did that last week, and that's my bad. I got a little mixed up because there's more weeks in, or not more weeks, obviously, but more Wednesdays in March than usual. There's 5, not 4. And so I got ahead of myself and I aired the wrong program on the wrong week. I'm really sorry about that. If you guys are planning on seeing Shannon's happy face today, you get to see me. So I'm doing an extra program this month because I normally only do 3. And this one is going to be on how to paint watercolors. We did watercolors last month, and I think people did. We're going to do a night sky watercolor, and it will be a little bit building on the techniques that we did last time. So we'll do some flood watercoloring, just kind of like what we did a couple of months ago. And we will build upon that technique, and I hope you really like it. It's very simple. You don't need to be an amazing artist to paint like this. So I hope that you get some watercolors sometime and give it a try. Again, as always, if you do try it out and you do paint a picture and you think it looks really good, send me a picture of it. I'd love to see the work that you guys have done. Because I don't get to see you all in person. I don't necessarily get to see if you've been able to make the project from my instructions. So it's always nice to see a picture or two of your finished work. So what I'll do is, just like always, I'll put my email in the comments and you can send me a picture if you end up making one. All right, guys, I will cue the video up and I'll let y'all watch it. Hold on one sec, okay? Hi, everyone. This is Sharon coming at you again with a requested watercolor video again. So we had a lot of folks who really liked the watercolor videos the first time we did them, so I thought it'd be fun to do another watercolor video. This time we're going to do a night sky painting. It's another one of the flood watercolor type of techniques, and we're going to make a night sky with kind of a silhouette of maybe a mountain or some other black thing that we can draw easily. So I'm always trying to make it so that these paintings are done in a way that if you're not maybe the world's greatest artist, you can still have success. So hopefully we're going to get that done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the entire piece of paper here that I've already taped down with just some water to get it nice and damp and ready for the color. You can always re-wet this, but I like to do the whole thing to begin with. So just some clean water, get the paper wet. Like, you don't want big puddles of water on the paper or anything, but you do want it to be wet so that the paint can flow around it easily. That is the whole idea here of getting the paper wet, is that the paint can move. You recall from last time we were doing that in like smaller areas at once, but this particular one will do the whole paper. And then we'll go ahead and go over to our colors, which I have right here. And I'm going to take this dark purple, which is one of my favorite colors in my set, so you can tell that it's been used a lot. And I'm going to make myself a wash here in my palette. And just get purple paint up on my paintbrush. It's really wet. And I'm putting it in my palette here. Instead, you can mix it in your trays of your watercolor. If you use these little block watercolors, you can do that really easily too. But because I paint a bunch of different things, it kind of makes the tray really messy. So I only use the tray to test for colors. I don't usually use it to make washes in. And this one, we're just going to kind of start putting it on the paper in sort of like strategic areas. So what we're doing is going to be making a night sky, which means that it doesn't have to be anything obvious or, darker at a horizon or lighter at a horizon. This is kind of an idea or an image of night already happening. Moon is not up, the sun has set already. And so we can just play around with a bunch of different like blues and greens and kind of come up with a really pretty night sky. So over on the part of my palette that's a little bit harder to see, you can see this. I see it right here. I'm going to use this blue for some blue, and then I have some other blues. So right now, as you watch me make the wash on my palette, you'll see I'm going to pull some blues together. So I have some there. And the nice thing about making these nice sky pictures, to me anyway, is that I think that they happen relatively quickly. They come together really fast, and the technique is really pretty. So I've got some blue. I'm going to just continue to add that in. And don't worry too much if for some reason it looks like they're not blending together at all. We'll go back and fix that later. So I'm going to just kind of mix them together. And you can overlap your margins. You can kind of do whatever you'd like to do here. The wet paper will help you get this blended together pretty nicely. So you can see there my paper's kind of getting dry. So I'm just going to, and it's okay if there's paint on it, pull some more water from my water jar and add it to that so that it continues to blend a bit. Keeps doing that mix. Add some more down here just for giggles. See, it's already kind of diffusing out. I love this technique for watercolors for that reason. It really makes you look like an amazing painter, and you've just added 2 colors to a piece of paper. All right, let's add some of this teal color I've got right here. You can't quite see it, but I'll make a wash of it and you'll be able to see it on my palette. So there's a teal color. I think that's a pretty color. And you can make it any color you want to, really. Like I said, it's not as necessary. Now, if you really like doing this kind of thing, it works really well for underwater colors too. Like if you're wanting to paint kind of like an under the oceaning type of scene, this also works great for that. So I'm going to finish up that teal that I have on my palette here. I'm going to let it kind of settle into the creases and corners. And then as I'm doing that, I'm going to probably go back up and I'm going to pull some of this blue that I have here, and I'm just going to add it to some of the corners of the canvas up here. And that blue and that purple are going to blend together and make it look darker up there, which is what I want. You don't have to do it that way, but I think it looks really pretty. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And see how the paper got dry and it's giving us a margin line there? Easy enough. Just get some wet water on your, get your brush all wet with some cool water and just kind of blend those edges together. Because the paper is still wet, it will do that for you, just kind of all on its own. It's the nice thing about watercolors. One of my favorite things about watercolors is that if you just get the paper wet again, it'll take care, any mistakes will take care of themselves. All right, so we're gonna let that dry just a sec. And really, that's all you have to do for the sky. That's it. I could keep poking at it and fiddling with it, but it's not necessary. That is pretty much that. So as my paper's drying, what we want to do is kind of talk about what we want our silhouette to look like. So I've done all kinds of different things. I've done houses, I've done mountains, I've done trees, I've done dragons, because if anybody who knows me at all is watching this show, they know that I love anything whimsical and fantastical. So there's all kinds of different things that you can do. And you don't have to have a fine tip brush like mine. I'm holding, I should say, a fine tip brush here. You can use any of your brushes. If you recall the last couple of times I've done watercolor stuff, I really recommend spending decent money on your brushes. These ones that I've had for a couple of different of the demos that I've done for you, they haven't shed, which is really nice. That means you're not picking up pieces of brush from your painting. And they also come to this really pretty point there all on their own. You don't have to do anything to get that point. And to me, that's just invaluable because I then don't have to buy a bunch of brushes, because if they all come to points, then there's no need to buy millions and millions of different sizes of brushes, because they are kind of expensive. They're about $10 a brush. I just have to have 3, and I will not need to buy any other brushes for a long, long time. All right, so part of my paper is dry. It's dry, kind of. I just gave myself some fingerprints, but it's mostly dry kind of in this area, which means that we can start adding the silhouette outline that we want to add for our night sky there. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just draw a mountain coming out this way and a tree coming up this way. All right, so the way we're going to do that is by simply just using black. And I use black an awful lot. So it is very definitely a well-used color. And we want to not mix that into a wash. This is going to be thick and dark and black. So what I'm doing is just rubbing my brush into the block of paint with really not a whole lot of water. And I'm rubbing it over and over and over and over and over again because I want to make a very thick, dark paint. So to test it out, check this out. It's nice and dark and black. See how it's not even washing out at all? That's what I want it to look for. And as you go back and continue to make the paint directly on the block will start to get wet and will give you even more pigment, so it will get even more concentrated as we go. All right, I'm going to test my paper again, make sure it's nice and dry, make sure my pigment's nice and thick, and I'm going to go. So a mountain shape is just a mountain shape. And it can be kind of any shape you want it to be. Shazam. There's mountain. Nice and easy. I may actually want my mountain to be a little bit longer, so I'm going to draw it out. And don't worry if it's bleeding where the paper is still a little bit wet, that's fine. We can go back and clean those lines up later. So we're just going to go in, and I'm going to actually use my bigger brush because there's a lot of this particular area that I'm going to need to paint black. And I still need a little bit more water on my brush there. If it starts to streak like that, where there's still white showing as you move your brush over it, it's not right, and we need to make sure that it's going on black and smooth. So there we go. We'll go back and mix paint, like I said, directly on that block as we need it. Uh-oh, I sprinkled some up into the sky. I got a little carried away. That's okay. We will let it blend in and come back and fix that later. I feel like Bob Ross sometimes. He liked to make a lot of noise when he painted. I don't know if you've ever watched Bob Ross, but he would make the shoo, shoo sounds with his brush, and I find that I also do that. Thanks, Bob. Thanks for leaving that particular legacy for painters everywhere, making all kinds of silly noises as we work our brushes here. Making more of that black pigment there. Like I said, don't even worry about the margins on that guy. We're going to come back to him later. So there we go. That is just going to be our mountain shape, just like that. Nothing too crazy, nothing too weird. We'll go back in right now, and I'm going to fix where I accidentally splattered some black onto that part of the canvas. And so I just got my paintbrush clean and wet, and I'm going to add the water there and blend it in and make it look like I did it on purpose. And when that dries, you will not even be able to tell. That's the tricky bit about watercolor, and kind of why I really like it, is that you're not able to tell once you're done that anything ever happened there. All right, well, now as we're waiting for this to dry, it's dry right over here. So I'm going to show you a really fun way that I have to make trees. I'm going to get that smaller brush out, not the smallest, but the smaller of three sizes, a big, a medium, and a small. So I guess this is the medium brush. I'm going to get a lot of that pigment there on my brush. This one I really want to make sure I don't have too wet because we don't want it to bleed out onto the paper. Okay, I'm going to start right here and just make a line down. And yes, I did learn this technique from Bob Ross. And then we're just going to start going zigzags. Make our tree. It's okay if our tree goes off the edges of the paper. See how I'm just zigzagging that back and forth and getting bigger and bigger as I go towards the base? That's it. That's all you have to do. It's a brilliant way, in my opinion, to paint a tree because it's super, super simple. Now that I've done that, I'm thinking I want to add another tree kind of right where my finger is. The trick is you either want to do odd numbers of things or have them off center. And the way I'm going to draw this tree is going to make it look like it is behind that little hill right there, not on top of it. So I'm going to go back into the black and just test again my paper, make sure it's nice and dry. And I'm going to make a smaller tree that blends into the hill right there. And then again, we're just going to go zigzaggy back and forth. Just like so. All right, I'm pretty happy with those two trees. So now we can go back, and I'm gonna, like I said, I'm always testing the paper to make sure that it's dry enough to do what I want. And we're gonna go back and clean up these edges. And all you have to do is just paint on top of the feathering, just a smidge, just like that. And that feathering is, of course, where your paint had bled into the paper. And you can leave the feathering if you want to. If you think it looks like trees or you like that look, you totally leave it. But for this particular thing, I really want it to look like a silhouette, so that's why I'm blending mine in. All right, so there we have the night sky, which I think looks great, and the trees. So we're just going to do one more little thing to make it all pop. And that is going to be adding some stars to the sky. So I have the white is way up here. Let's see if I can scooch this down a little bit. My filming area isn't terribly big. So my white's right there up at the top. And again, just like I did with the black, I'm going to go in and make it really, really, really thick paint. I'm also going to wipe this paintbrush off on my pants just to make sure. You should use a paper towel, but I didn't bring any over here, so you're going to wipe it off. I'm wiping off my pants. There we go. All right. We're going to make really, really concentrated white paint. And this one I am using my teeny tiny brush for. Like I said, you don't need to use your teeny tiny brush. It helps in this particular instance. All right. So, teeny tiny brush. Hold it straight up and down to get the dots as circular as you can get them. And I add more stars where it's darker, because if you think about the sky, that's where you can see more stars, is where the sky is darker because you don't have any light pollution. So I'll put more in the darker pigmented areas of the canvas. And if you make a blob like that guy, I'm not, ooh, dropped my brush, that happens. I'm not super happy with that guy, just make him bigger. It's no big deal. It's just a bigger star. This side is kind of on a slope, the way that the paper decided to warp with the paint. So those stars are a little bit circular, and I don't know if I even like them. I may take them off. Which, in case you're wondering, you just do by getting the paint wet. So here we go, just adding stars in any sort of way you want to. Okay. So looking at it, I am not completely happy with the way those stars over there went. And so when I'm done with this, I'll take them off. As I mentioned, it works a lot better if you hold your brush up as straight up and down as you possibly can. And just touch it to the paper. Super, super gently. That one came off as a big blob again. Sometimes I group the bunch together, because in my world there's not a big city behind us, so we can see the stars. And so here we go. All right, so now I'm just going to go in and take those ones off that I didn't like. Right off. Goodbye. And that's how easy it is to take them off of your paper. Just that simple. They're still wet, they just come right off. And just even getting your finger wet will make them go. And just rub the paint off the sides, and there you go. All right, guys. I think this painting is done. I really like it. I hope you guys do too. I hope you try it. As you can see, it didn't take terribly long for me to do this for you, just only 20 minutes. So I hope you do try. Let me know if you do. Send me a picture. Until I get to see you guys all again in person, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep making. Have a great night. Bye. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope you noticed that I made plenty of mistakes in that particular painting, but I was able to clean them up. Wow, I had chocolate on my face. Holy moly. Anyway, I'm batting 1,000 tonight. I cleaned up my mistakes, just like leaving chocolate on my face, and was able to really get a nice picture out of that. So I have a friend who always wants me to show the finished picture when I pull the tape off. So I don't normally pull the tape off when I'm doing the actual demo because the paper is too wet. So if I were to pull the tape off, the paper would warp. So I do have the finished picture here with the tape off of it, so that my friend Cynthia, who likes to watch my programs with me, can see what it looks like with those really nice clean edges. So there you go. There's the nice clean edges of that picture. And, you know, that picture took me about 20 minutes to do. And it will take you longer than 20 minutes because you haven't practiced. But as you go, it'll be quicker and you'll be able to add more detail to whatever you'd like to do. More trees, less trees, more mountains, less mountains, a little silhouette of a house, whatever you really want to do, you can do it. All right, guys. Without any further ado or any more embarrassment on my part, because I was totally snacking while that was airing, I will bid you good night. I will see you guys again in 2 weeks. I will be on vacation the first week of April, so we won't have a creative aging program then. But then I will come back and see you. All right, guys, until I get to see you in person, and you can let me know that I have chocolate on my face in person.
Stay safe, stay healthy, and keep making. Have a great night, guys. Bye.